Hi, Mr. AJ.
How's
Thanks.
everything going, Thomas?
Great, great. Thanks for joining me and deciding to call in sick from work. Uh,
Shh, don't spread that around. Come
oh
on.
yeah, my bad, my bad. This high end podcast, millions and millions of seconds will be wasted on. So, but yeah, no, I'm glad you joined us, and as we've already discovered in the pre conversation before starting, you haven't really watched the show, but just for anyone listening, of course, this is a how to write show. We talk about craft, we talk about our journey as writers, and of course, we talk about the inside business from our perspective. The last couple of guests I've had on this show, this is season 4, by the way. I've been kind of mixing it up, writers from different worlds. I had a lyricist just on. I have poets, but I also have people that kind of write speeches and stuff like that, right? So in this situation, I was like, AJ, you got to come on. You work in the wrestling industry, and you're a producer of wrestling as well, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes.
Which means you handle storylines in some form or another. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, so I was like, let me get my buddy AJ Pan or Aj. No,
Yeah. as I'm known in French cultures.
that's right. What's AJ short for? AJ. It's short.
Right. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. That's why it's shortened.
Yeah. And I was like, AJ, come on, we'll talk about what it takes to write some of the things that are going on, and I figured we have just a nice conversation. So that sets up really the episode. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye. We'll see you next time. No.
All right. Good talking to you. I appreciate the time.
So for anyone who is listening, what is writing as far as handling wrestling in a sense? Like some people like writing. You write, like, what do you get? So explain it just in a layman's version for anyone who is a writer that is like, oh, there's different variations of writing.
So yeah, it is. It's very tough to people who aren't in the industry, and even for those who are, because there's so many different mentalities to writing for professional wrestling, sports entertainment, as it's now pretty much known. A lot of there's a kind of a disconnect with mindsets. There's something what we call, and a lot of people are going to hate me if who are watching wrestling, wrestling fans, excuse me, we call it kayfabe, which is basically an old thought of keeping the characters and keeping the storylines going 24/7.
Oh yeah.
So when, like, back in the day, and a lot of still believe in it, that the good guys and the bad guys could not be seen together in public. They could not be, like, they were believed to hate each other throughout to keep that going.
So it's like the 60s.
Yeah, to a lot. Yeah, a lot of independent companies. Some still believe in it. And it's tough sometimes because I do. That's what drew me in, but at the same time, I realized we moved into 2023.
Yeah.
Vince McMahon has openly, the biggest, wrestling promoter in the world, has acknowledged that it's sports entertainment, which is, a choreographed sports entity. So, and we can go on a whole conversation about being fake versus fixed. That's a whole different topic. But,
Well, fake would mean that it's not really happening. I mean, they take those bumps. They take the pratfalls. They, sometimes you got to give it a receipt to somebody that's hitting you a little too hard. Not that I've ever been in wrestling and don't know the terminology, but
pretty spot on, actually, though. You pretty much, that was a pretty good description.
Thank you. I'm a baby face. You could be the heel. We'll make it work.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, I was a big fan of wrestling before I changed careers, but you're right though. It isn't fake. It's very real.
Yes.
And but it is choreographed. But so is John Wick. And people believe that in the sense of they're emotionally connected to what's going on. And like you said, they don't want to break the character. So if a heel, which is a bad person usually, or a baby face, which is the good person, are seen in public having some nachos, it could mess up the emotional connection the audience has within a running storyline. Yeah,
correct. Yes. Okay. Yeah, that's correct. I know. Yeah, but yeah, definitely correct. And again, to an extent, I still agree with it. But and perfect point, because I always tell that to people too, and especially in the industry, it's like, yeah, Avengers, they grossed how many millions, biggest franchises ever. And I mean, come on, they're fighting space alien and all that. It's a totally something that's just out of the realm of normal possibilities.
Hmm.
And yet people get invested for hours at a time and over 7, 8 films. So, why can't you have the same concept in wrestling? And now to me, I mean, in my mindset, when I tell people, that's actually a bigger accomplishment for what we do. If we can get you to suspend disbelief, and especially now with social media, with so many wrestlers and personalities on there, that
Yeah.
if we can get you to suspend disbelief for the 3 hours that you're attending a show, I think that's an even bigger accomplishment than, oh, they're carrying it on all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, but a lot of wrestlers and a lot of people do not like that mindset. But
Do you ever find it like within the industry when you write out characters or people wrestlers are supposed to be a certain character, uh when they're just not really that character and they're working very hard to be that character, but they refuse to stop doing that character, and you're like, you're making it harder for me to write these storylines because I don't believe you. And if I don't believe you, there's a chance they don't believe you, and you're not really an angry, mean person. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I mean the independents are a little different, where they more develop the characters. Where we could let them come in and try a lot of things, or we're more storyline based.
Yep.
At least the companies I write for, so it's more to us storyline dictated. So like me, I like to get a feel of who they are. Something similar actually just happened where there was a talent, and other companies they've changed their character,
Mm.
and it's really really cool. I love it, and it works for certain companies. But for us, in my head when I saw it, I'm like, how are we going to make this make sense? We built this whole story with them where they came back, they had a great match again. It was a female having against a male talent,
Yeah.
and it was totally believable. Back and forth match where she lost just like this. So the crowd was behind, even though she lost, the crowd was behind her.
It's the Rocky
And
win.
yeah, exactly. And then later on in the show, the promoter actually added her to an existing match for the women's championship, and she won, where the crowd went nuts. So mission accomplished, and we've been on a couple of events where, successful, winning her defenses.
Yeah.
So we had a little bit of a break, and all of a sudden coming back as a totally different character. So I'm stressing, like, how do we make this make sense here? So it's just really, it just gets to a point where I've been doing this 22 years. So
Yeah. And what are
I
you,
just and
15? No.
yeah, yeah. uh, so, so I'm lucky enough where I come from both now being a talent side
Yeah.
and also, being the booker slash promoter side. So I can get both points of view across to them. So it just came to a point where, like, we were discussing, and I said, okay, outside of you speaking as your character, tell me, why did you decide to go this direction? Why do you see this? What made, what compelled you?
Money.
And then they spoke through to me, like outside of there, just as them. And while they're going on all about that, I'm taking notes and knowing their social media personas and seeing, a lot of their real life stuff. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, now I'm able to connect to this, and now I can kind of make sense of what you want to do and how we can make it work for us.
Yeah. Like, why are you posting pictures of your baby when you're supposed to be this villain that, like,
Yeah, yeah,
you're like, go, 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 gaga, here's my baby.
yeah. And
And
then you
then
want
just
everybody
like,
to hate you, and yeah, coming out and screaming, and it's like, ah.
yeah, yeah,
So
I am the most villainous person. Also, here's my.
yeah.
It's funny. Like when I was in the music industry, that's how it was. But I had three personas. I had me, Thomas J. Bellezza. I had my stage persona, Telmon Altanian, and then I had my manager, which was still me, the guy next door. His name was Guy. His email was the guy next door at blank blank blank. Right. So when I did shows, I walked around as me, and then I'd go in the back, dress up, come on stage, do the whole thing. Then I'd go backstage, dress back down to me, and people didn't know because I look so different from my stage persona and my energy that I was able to kind of walk around without being bothered.
Right.
And I would still have like my shirt on for the band, but I wouldn't wear it on stage. It would be the Tenebra shirt, like. But people would be like, "Oh, what are you working with the band?" I go, "Yeah, I'm the roadie." You know, and but the guy next door was somebody that always was at shows watching, but like he
Yeah.
didn't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
So you had to email him to ask questions about hiring us because I didn't want to do business while I was there because I wanted to create a separation. So it's
Yes.
just funny that you're saying it about the wrestlers, the talent, where it's like, look, it's okay to separate the two and have your life, but at the same time, you should really separate them. Like, don't allow it to kind of, like if you have social media presence and it's like, I'm a villain, I'm a villain, I'm a villain. Oh, by the way, here's my vacation. I went to, Pennsylvania and, whatever. And then here's like a recital of my daughter or my son, in school. And then it's like, I will kill you, murder you. I will beat you in the cage match this week. And then like the next thing's like, by the way, I really love poetry, right? Like they don't understand that destroys their brand and messes with the storyline. So, yay or nay on that?
To an extent, I think it just depends on the character the person is, and again, also it's an attest, to how the person is able to come across. And because I've had people, and going back to an earlier thing I said, it's funny because I'm very you see me. I'm pretty transparent for the most part on
Yeah.
social media. So one of the best compliments after a show, I'm standing talking to another town. They walk away, and a fan comes up, and they're looking at me. They're smiling. They're shaking their head, and I'm like, "Oh hi." It's like, listen, I got to tell you, I'm like, I know you online, and you seem really cool, Dan, and I see, you seem like this really cool guy. But man, when I come to shows, I want to see you get your effing ass kicked. I hate your guts. And like, that's the best compliment you could give me. The fact that I can make you forget all of that for the 15, 20 minutes I'm out there.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, like you believe that I'm this asshole, excuse my language. And
Yeah.
that's the best compliment you can give to me. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, people actually believe Hulk Hogan took his vitamins, made his prayers, didn't,
Some
didn't,
kind of vitamins. We'll leave it at
yeah,
that.
he took ones that made him big and strong.
Exactly. Yes.
But like even Jake the Snake Roberts, this is a guy that came out with a snake, but he was really playing with his snake with 6, 7 women in his hotel room, trying to get back home to his wife. It's a boa cocaine strip, but you got to keep character.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's get into the writing of it a little bit. What is the process? Like, let's say somebody wanted to write, or at least practice and get you some sort of spec kit or something to show you that they can write for wrestling and for characters. How does someone approach writing as in the wrestling world?
It's really tough now, and it's funny, when WWE for a long time, and they still do to us that have Hollywood writers, and they didn't have really many wrestlers or old school wrestlers on the panel, so you could tell that there was just a big disconnect in the programming to a wrestling based audience, where I get they were trying to get the mainstream audience, but for a while it was coming across just not what we were watching and a big disconnect. So I think for wrestling, you definitely should have a general knowledge of, the talents, past
Yeah.
storylines, whatnot. But at the heart of it all, I mean, and some might hate it, but it's a male soap opera. That's what it is for the most part.
Yeah, it definitely is. Before you go any further, though, just to clarify to the audience stuff, what he's talking about is like Freddie Prinze Jr. Wrote for the WWE, right? Right, like people like that. I know
Yeah.
that Shawn Michaels right now is heading next. Is that correct? He's
Yes,
part of
he's
the.
the NXT, and Triple H now is the head of creative for
Yeah,
main
yeah.
WWE brands. But
And
for
one
a
of my
while,
good,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, and one
Freddie
of my
Prinze
good
was
buddies
actually
actually.
he was very good, but the other ones that they had from just like picking from TV
Oh
shows were
yeah,
just
yeah.
not good at all. Yeah.
Well, because they were bringing in like the right, like a TV show mentality, and not necessarily, like you said, the stories. Like, I want to sit down with my Spanish girlfriend and enjoy the telenovelas. Like that's all it is. It's just for
Right,
men.
exactly.
But yeah, one of my good friends who I mentored actually is a writer for Next. He works with WWE and he handles everything. Excellent guy, and he actually came up in the wrestling world as a promoter, as a referee, as all these things. So it's interesting that you have multiple layers to you. You're a talent, but you're also a producer, but you're also behind the scenes. But anyway, all right. So it's so you're saying it's more like a soap opera, but are you writing physical scripts or are you jotting down beats and ideas?
For me, it's more I mean, it is a little bit of scripting, not so much what they say and whatnot, but more like just like the detail and the breakdowns of the show because I have to then bring it to the promoter. And the main one I work with right now, he doesn't come from a wrestling background, but he's become more accustomed to it as the years we've been in business. It's going to be our 8th year in
Wow.
March. So yeah,
Congratulations.
so
Yeah.
thank you. So he's been. It took like his 4th year where he's like, I'm finally starting to get it. So it takes like people like me, like, and now, and great guy, but sometimes he just wants to have like that shock by he's like, oh, let's just do this. And I have to explain to him, like, we can't just go from A to Z with nothing in between because the fans aren't going to connect to that. There needs to be layers as to why this is happening. Even if, independent wrestling's tough, as you might have shows January, February, March, or you might go from January, March, then June. So even like this past event that we had, we're building some to our March event, but we kind of needed, because we took a couple months off, like kind of needed to speed it up a little. But
Yeah.
so, like, how can we make this work and get the people to already connect to the story that we've been slowly building? So there was something in our opening match, then something in our 5th match, and it finally built to a main event where there was a huge what we call an angle, which was the
Yeah.
basically the major storyline.
Well, yeah, it's the
And
fictional storyline that usually begins when one wrestler attacks another or whatever, which usually results in a revenge plot.
yes,
Is that
so
accurate?
we
I
did
don't know
something.
these things, but
Yes. So we did something, yeah, pretty similar like here, and it involved a gentleman who's like a newer kid.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, so like he was a little wary at first, and because he was just really originally scheduled for one segment, one match,
Yeah, yeah.
and in that match, was scheduled for him to lose, and he's like, oh, worried about that. I'm like, just trust me on this. They said, wait, we're after everybody else leaves and we go over what you're going. There's layers to this. By the end of the night, as long as you can deliver, this could be a star-making moment for you because we're putting you
Yeah.
now up against a right face to face with our heavyweight champion.
He could literally be put over.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, well, as long as you deliver, and thankfully he did. So like when it was time to do what he needed to do, shoving down his partner and then knocking the world champion out, the place went nuts.
Yeah, because you built it
We're
up.
like, where a show before, as soon as he came out, there was okay, little reaction, like, oh yeah, okay. And then now, in the span of 3 hours, we were able to build him to like people now seem credible, and now people believe in this monster who is just unpredictable, even to his friends who had his back the past 2 years that we've seen him.
Yeah, as long as it's not the Goldberg story where he can't wrestle. So they were like, look, you're going to go in, you're going to spear him, you're going to do your jackknife and call it a day. All right. If it goes past 3 minutes, we know it's over.
I mean, yeah, and I mean, in my view, that's kind of how you work with like the younger talent who are still learning. Like you give them those shorter matches, or like like said,
Yeah.
one of the said gentlemen. Like you give them the airtime, but like he was almost like a bodyguard for
Yeah.
another wrestler who was almost the same experience, but he just developed quicker and he had a much larger than life presence. But a little bit of a smaller guy, so this guy just has that presence where it just it didn't connect yet. So it was the perfect to have him be the one to interfere sometimes to help
Yeah.
it win and then slowly draw them in, which now everybody links them together. So when he finally shoved this kid down, everybody's like, what the? Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
God. Like, why is it? And then now again, then he gets in the champion's face, elbows him, knocks him down, where this guy is the biggest a-hole in the business. And
Yeah.
like, oh, you're going to do that to me? All right. And a huge brawl breaks out. And the crowd's eating it up like candy. So
Well, yeah.
it's a
And,
process.
some people don't realize it's not just about the moves. Like they're not just like, all right, let's go in. You do your signature move. You do this. You do right because you have your spots, whatever.
Yes.
But like in reality, it is the story of the build up. It's this match they didn't do much, but something happened.
Yes.
Then this happens, and they snuck in, or whatever the case may be. I mean, even Y2J, like bringing him in the way they brought him in, where once in a while, woo, woo,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
nothing, and they were like, "What is going on?" Like even that, when he came to WWE, it was massive, and they came out
Yeah.
and yelled at The Rock, I believe, right?
Yes.
And but he was like, "Ew," and I was like, "There's my boy Chris." Because of the buildup. The buildup is important. Just like with a novel, you can't just be like, "Here's the protagonist.
Yes.
Next chapter, they're the most victorious person in the world." No, they got to go through trials and tribulations.
Of course.
With those characters though that you're right, the talent that you're writing for. Now, since you're and I don't mean this in an insultive way anyway, but you're in a smaller federation. You're
Yes.
right. But I believe, if I remember correctly, you still have filmed events, right?
Yeah.
Like you film like things that people could buy, or like they could watch it on social
Oh
media,
yeah.
right? Uh, so that places you in a unique position where you can allow dark matches,
Yes. Yes.
essentially, right? Where
Yeah.
like you're like, we're not putting a lot of production value into filming this, but we'll let some people get some mat time
Yes.
and stuff like that. How do you use, as a writer, how do you use the dark matches to kind of build storylines that aren't necessarily influencing the on air or the promotional matches? Because ultimately, the things that you want people to see, you're going to put time into, but you don't
Sure.
want to take away from the quality of the dark matches. So again, my simplified answer: what is your process of writing a dark match that has value that ultimately influences a story arc?
For me personally, I mean, more dark matches are more or less kind of, for lack of a better term, more of tryouts sometimes, and just to
Hmm.
give them see how people will react. More for the people like who are sending us their resumes, and if they want to make the trip down, like, all right, we can give you a little exposure this time, and if we work out, if we like what we see, in person, then we could hopefully move you on to the main card, the next show, and see, if you click better. And some do, some are just fall flat. So yeah, we've gotten some people who like, after we saw some of their tapes, we looked at some clips. And like, okay, they have a good look. Let's give them a shot and see, if they can actually now how they react in our crowd. And again, some have sung, some have swam greatly, and yeah, it's just a matter of you got to be up for the challenge. Yeah, there's like the one and like big talk online and shooting promos for it. Okay, I'm excited to see this guy, and then he comes out and maybe it was stage fright or something just didn't click, but no reaction. And watching, it was just very bland walking out. And I'm saying later, and I'm telling him like, what happened to this guy we've been seeing online? And it was in our, when it was still around Twitter Spaces, that was going off on talent and saying he wanted an opportunity. Like this wasn't the way to go about it. Where his opponent made a huge impression. And so I had a coworker, and his son came to the event, and during an admission, I spoke to him. I was like, "Oh, what do you think so far?" And speaking to the my coworker, and he's like, "Oh, my son's in love with so and so gentleman who was in the first match, the
Yeah,
opponent." And so it's just like that. He was able, okay, this is somebody we're going to bring back now because first time out, and he just brought something different. The kids loved it. You could just see it on camera where okay, there's a spark there. There's something we can cultivate and
yeah.
deliver the right. As long as and it's true. Like it's got to be a both way. We have to be invested, and they have to trust us to be invested. So it's like this one. This one gentleman. He's just very open. What we have, what we need. Like yes, and Daniel, we need this out of you. We're gonna put you on here. We're building you very very slowly, but you're on the right path. We're loving it. Every time out is a big step forward. So hopefully in 6 7 months we could put you in a much bigger match. And now it's gotten to that point where I think our next event or two we get putting him against a guy who's been around for about 15 20 years, and it's going to
Yeah.
be a big test for him. Like one of his biggest matches, I like to believe, to date.
Well, and which is great because I'm sure you as a writer and a promoter are happy when you see people go over and they start building themselves, and they're attuned to the direction, and they're in tune with themselves as a character, and they're really embracing that. uh let me ask you a question though, with dark matches and tryouts. If you saw, I think his name is Joey Ryan, I could be wrong, but the guy who grabs the nuts,
Yes.
if you saw that guy, but before he was Joey Ryan, like if that was the first match the guy ever did, and he's like, my finisher is people grab my sack, and then I'm able to outpower them with my will. Uh, um, how would you respond to that? Like if they came up to you like, listen, AJ, can I call you Ash? Anyway, uh, this is my finisher. This is how I'm gonna end the match. It goes over great. Trust me. Even though this is my first match, how would you approach that situation?
Oh, that yeah. I would be. If they wanted to try that live without us seeing it, I would. If somebody we didn't trust, I would definitely need. I'd like probably axe it or be like, if you have tape of it, let's see it. Let's see how it comes. Yeah. Because there are some of those outlandish things that I've, and it's been, like we have the gentleman comes out with whipped cream. He's the, the creamy superstar.
Of course.
But it works the way, like he just has the personality to get it over. And, he sprays whipped cream in their mouths. He comes out with 3 pairs of track pants and throws it at the referee. But it works for him. Some people it might just not work. But
It's the
if I
money
heard
shot.
that, it might be like, I don't know. Can I see it? And we still like, all right, this is freaking funny. All right, let's try it out.
So
I
so
love catchy shit like that. Some people hate it. Some people are totally against it. I love
well,
the entertainment part
yeah,
of it.
yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what it is.
So
It's sports entertainment.
exactly, yeah. So as long as it's not over the top, depending on our crowd, and if they're going to react to it, I'm all for the whole mix of okay. Let's have one really great 4 or 5 star match. Let's have something where people are cracking up, like what's going on here. Let's have some more where it's just more character development.
Yeah, like
So
Dink and Dunk. Like, that match is gonna be fun. Yeah. Which is
the
interesting because
original Doink was a great was a great storyline because he was a evil clown,
yeah.
and it was just like exploring like that dark side of something like that. Where especially at that time, it was just very cartoonish, so they could have went a whole different direction with it. And for a while, that was a really good character.
He was also technically a good wrestler as well.
He
Like,
was the original
yeah,
definitely was yes.
yeah, he was. Yeah, yeah. So what you're saying is the finisher is off the table. If I come in, I'm like, listen, my move is I psychically link to people's hands. I grab my nutsack and I overpower their will into a somersault of body slams. Uh, and then I put my foot on their chest and I go, hey, and I win.
If you're just coming in right off the street, 6 matches in, and you tell me this, no, we're not. No.
All right.
Try it
Okay.
somewhere else and then show it to me, and we'll see if we can use it next time. But not happening on my watch.
So it's not a good gimmick, is what you're saying.
I mean, it depends on the part, and I think you'd have, like Joey Ryan was known, at the
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
so he had the name back to try it out one time, and the company where he first did it was known for more comical stuff, so it was a perfect kind
AEW,
of.
right, or something? What do they call it?
No, it was a
No,
company in Japan called DDT Pro.
that's it. Yeah, they.
Yeah, and they they had they did like I think it was called the DDT Metalweight Championship,
Yeah,
and it was like a hardcore, but it was like it would change in the stupidest manner. I remember one, it was like Joy or somebody was having a dream backstage,
yeah.
and they lost the championship in the dream. But it were like watching like, but this okay, at least that's their audience, and it works for that. So
That's funny.
you're not going to come in, like two of the best technical wrestlers in the world, and then you're going to try that. Like, no.
Who says I'm technical? No. uh, do you have your go-to heaters? What?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, and obviously, do you use them in a very specific way, or do you allow them to kind of grow as well? But
It's a mix, definitely. It depends. Like our world heavyweight champion, we built enough trust within each other that he gives a suggestion sometimes, like, oh, what do you think of us doing this? And
yeah,
like, yeah, go for it. You've earned our spot. There's sometimes like we need him to test out somebody where it might not be the best spot per se for him, but being a company friend, trusting what we've done with him in the past, like, listen, there's just this one chance in the car, like you're the person that can tell us if such and such can be moved into a bigger position or they're not ready at all.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's been time. We're like, all right, we're gonna like, we had a tournament. I'm like, all right, with the first match, like, we're gonna see if this person can hang with you. If they
yeah,
can't, we obviously know we have to, go a different direction. And the second round, there was somebody else like, all right, this is gonna be their test. I have a good feeling. And that one went above and beyond expectations. But we know we could trust him with any of those challenges. But yeah, same time, he's like, oh, whatever we need, like, oh, yeah, Darius can knock it out of the park. He can make, chicken salad out of chicken shit. So
yeah. And I'm sure that helps when you have that kind of movement with people that you can trust with the writing.
yes.
It really moves things along. Which brings me to without causing any issues or any drama. Do you feel the federations you work with have a strong slew of hookers within the industry, or do you feel like they're more gimmicky, like they're relying on the show and less um, for anyone listening, uh, that would be somebody who has an array of moves and abilities.
I was waiting for you to describe that. I know where you were
Yeah,
going.
yeah, yeah. I'm not saying hooker like, they're. I mean, they're all paid talent, if you know what I mean. But you don't pay them to go home. You pay them to wrestle. Arr. But a hooker in the
Everyone who worked for
industry.
a living is a hooker.
Yeah, yeah. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I realize I'm talking to a wrestling guy, so I can use the terminology. But for anyone
Yeah.
listening, a hooker is just somebody who's basically very skilled. They have the abilities to kind of. It's more old school style, and that's why I ask. I'm not asking to create the drama, but how is the industry? And uh, with that said, if there aren't a lot of quote unquote hookers in your roster, does that change the way you approach storylines, especially if you know these are more showy wrestlers nowadays? Even though they have moves, they're not like the old school, red shorts and stuff.
Me personally, I like to have variety. So if I'd rather have, we have our few who we know can put on fantastic matches, and we have others where we know they can put where they're okay, solid to good to very good, and can be, either pulling out a good match, could be carried to a good contest, but they have that character as well that connects with the fans. So we need the variety. That's my opinion. And there are other companies who have different mindsets. You have the ones who are just strictly wrestling, and people are crazy for that. You have the ones who have, the death matches. Death matches are, they hit each other with and I know it's gonna say, but yes, just have light tubes and
Yeah.
thumbtacks and boards with barbed wire, and there's an audience for that. I'm not a huge proponent of it, but I don't, take away from anybody who does do it and their fan base. There is a fan base for that. That's not mine. I want the good match, the good to very good matches along with characters. Because that's
Yeah.
what I grew up on. And you want the connection.
Yeah, and character alone is not going to drag a storyline, but character with moves is going to drag a storyline. However, moves without character is not interesting,
Right,
and
exactly. Yeah.
it's always a game. Now, have you ever written something out for an event, and you're like, this is going to be a strong show, but then somebody ends up coming on the show, and you're like, like the original premise for the jerk of the curtain or jerk the curtain, and you're like, no, we got to put this other person who just slipped in, and you have to like rearrange the beat of the show. Have you ever had that situation where you're like, this is the jerk the curtain guy?
Um, Not really that has happened, but there's been where I've had to, like just like earlier on when I wasn't higher up on the production team, and I
Yeah,
just knew right away. I'm just like, this is either somebody has the attitude that I know it's not going to go over well, like their personal attitude is not going to go well, or just this is not the right move to make. But the promoter or someone higher in the booking committee is like, no, this is the way to go, and then we watch it and it falls flat on its face, and I'm like, hate to be the one to say, I told you so, but this wasn't. And so yeah, it has happened. I've pulled my hair out many times. I mean, luckily I
yeah,
still have a good one. Many times, and people, people who know me, and they like. Thankfully, I have enough respect in the industry now where everybody can see my like, oh, like you're going through it. I'm like, yeah, please, just if I'm sure with you right now, please do not take it personally. You see what's going on at the moment. I have to try to make this the best possible that it could be, and you're asking a lot of me. So I have put in that position. But you know, thankfully enough, I've been doing this long enough that 9 times out of 10, I can at least make it passable. But there's just some like this is not the right. And you gotta let it go and let it feel like, all right, you see, we gotta move on now, right? We gotta plug in so and so and cut the storyline, short because
yeah, yeah. So
yeah,
writing is about rewriting, and sometimes you can't, and sometimes you can, and you got to see where it goes.
yeah,
Go with the punches, no pun intended.
yes,
uh you know but that also, that brings us to another thing about writing is sometimes, like you're saying, the long game is important, which I agree with. You got to build that up, and sometimes you have to do these married storylines
yes,
where they build these long series of matches, and some people might get a little frustrated. I'm sure, like you were saying, the guy for the 8 years has been working on the first 4 years. He was like, I need more punch, I need something to happen now, and you're like, no,
yeah.
trust us, it's the buildup. And that brings us to like even with WWE, they did that a couple times. Like they keep bringing people in and they're interfering with each other's matches, but they're
Yeah.
not actually fighting each other. And then they go to fight, but somebody interferes, stop it. Who's
Yeah.
going to win? They can't know now because the match is done. And it
Right.
takes 2 years. And then finally, they WrestleMania.
Yes.
You know, do you take your writing from the Giants, or do you purposefully try to avoid a lot of their structure, uh, and make your own name, your own voice come out in the writing of the wrestling?
I mean, I've been a fan for since I was 10 years old. So obviously, I do take the basic points, that they've built, and you don't try to reinvent the wheel per se. And again, it's certain talents like that's how a lot of them are structured. So we all try to work together. But my style, I like to think too. I take from some of that. I guess speaking going back to earlier, I'm in the 2023 mindset where there, for the most part, there's no really any more clear cut villains and heroes. Everybody
Yeah.
has a bit of a gray area. So, like, even with my character, when I, do stuff for myself now, I always try to inject a little bit of that gray area, or even like people, sometimes they might feel the sympathy for me, or they need to understand where I'm coming from. So, even though, like, this guy is an ass, like, why is he doing this? Well, I have made the purpose. Like, for a while, I was managing a bunch of my best friends. I
Yeah.
was representing them. So, even though I'm interfering in their matches, my whole point is, well, I'm doing this because no promotion will give them the opportunity on their own.
Mm-hmm.
They're overlooked. So whatever little bit I can do to help my friends get to the position I believe they can be in, I'm going to do what it takes. So my friendship with them, that's my through line through it. So people can understand it. I might not be doing the right thing in their eyes, but people like, all right, like shit, I hate that. I kind of agree that, we all have my friend, we might not agree with, how they get there, but I'm going to support them. So
Yeah. Triple H.
it
Listen, nepotism is beautiful. You know, Shane
is. It's a
McMahon.
great thing. Yeah. I wish I would have met Stephanie. Yeah. I got to leave
Yes,
here.
Stephanie.
She's a beautiful woman.
Yeah, beautiful woman. But both
Yes.
are implants. Do you work with any monsters?
um, I have in the past. It's tough for me. I mean, some people again, that's an attraction. To me, a monster to me, like they need, and it's tough to find some, at least in our area, who like have like the whole package, who are
Yeah.
just big, but big, have charisma, who can move around, and I'm a big too. Like also backstage, it has to be a good atmosphere, and just some like they come across like, especially with guys like that, and oh, well, I'm 7 foot, I'm the
Yeah.
best thing in this. Like, no, you're not. Like, you definitely have, and you could be built, but like just have the attitude, like you're coming in, like, okay, what can I do to help? I know
Yeah.
what I can give you. Like, okay, let's see what we could do and we can get you to that spot. But don't just come in here and oh yeah, I can walk over the top rope and choke slam somebody, so I deserve, to be the best guy here. Like, no, that's not my point of view at all. I'd rather have the 6'2", 6'3" guy who's 240, 245, who can tell a tremendous storyline
Yeah.
and has a great talking presence. And as soon as you see him at the curtain, people are booing or cheering. I'd
Yeah.
much rather have that than oh yeah, and boom.
Look, not everybody is the Undertaker, like
No,
he could
and
sell
that even
anything.
took time for him to develop. He
Yeah,
was
yeah.
so many iterations before that. Me, Mark Callis, a part of a
Yep.
tag team called the Skyscrapers. So it took
That's right.
forever to just get
Yeah,
that
yeah.
character. So
And for anyone listening, there was a time he thought he was coming out as the Chicken Man, and he was so nervous because they were promoting like an egg leading up to like Survivor Series or WrestleMania or something. And he's just like, "Please don't be Eggman. Please don't be Eggman." You know.
yeah.
But all right, okay. Um, what makes it difficult to be a writer in your industry and for you personally? How like what is the hardest part about being a writer and getting those storylines out?
Same thing that I mentioned earlier. The different personalities you have to deal with sometimes.
Okay.
Which yeah, I again coming from both areas, I do get where it's tough to trust promoters sometimes. Other companies, they'll tell you one thing and they'll go a totally different direction, or they'll just drop you out of nowhere. So that's definitely part gaining their trust and be like, listen, I've been doing this for just, I try certain people who I know we have plans for, and maybe, just for whatever reason, maybe, they don't feel a certain way or they don't think we have that faith in them. I have to pull them aside and be like, just please show we love you here. We really enjoy what you're doing, but we're just building this the correct way. Like, give us a while. We do see the potential in you, and this is our idea. And hopefully, we can get to it. Obviously things happen. There's injuries. I
Yeah.
say, I always tell people, there's one guy working right now, and I say, personally, I do hope you get your contract and we don't have you. But professionally, I want you around. So, we are preparing just in case, because there's glimmers of you being on that verge. So again, I would love
Yeah.
that for you as a friend, but as a promoter, I would hate
I
it.
need you around. You're doing great.
Yeah, like we just built this whole story. So
Yeah.
that's a big, and also if you're not running the show 100%, you got to have to deal with sometimes the promoter who they might see some and they're like, we're like, again, like I said, like, oh, let's do this. Right. I'm like, no, why? There's been times like, wait, what did you just say? Why are we doing this? Like, no, you can't. Why? I want to see it. So do I, but it has to make sense. We can't just shoot this person right away who was
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 shows in who is just getting that, connection with the crowd and putting them in the main event. Like, no, we need to craft the story so where by the time that match happens, the people are going insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And it's tough to do, and it's tough. There was one story we did, um, one of our first, I think it was, I want to, or our first or second intergender match, and the world champion, great, and he's one. That's why we could trust him, and he's just one of the biggest assholes in the industry. He knows how to get under people's skin.
yeah.
And we were building for a story with him and this female talent, and she got injured. So we're like, we're gonna have you. We want to keep you. She's a very talented person, a sweetheart. So like, we'll put you on commentary. So we keep you on camera. So I wouldn't tell her that I didn't promote her. Every time, like whenever he was after the match, I'm like, come over to the commentary table and fuck with her.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm like, I got you. So every show we built that until there was time when she told she was clear.
Yeah.
And by the time that happened a year later, when they finally met in the ring and she popped him, 200 people are on their feet going nuts. And it's something like that where, like, aside of being a performer, once I see something in my head that I'm like hoping would happen, and when I see it happen, I have to hide my face because inside I'm like, yes, yes. I love seeing that for them and for us, like as a comeback. Oh,
Yeah. It worked out. It worked out.
yeah, it worked out like even better than I could imagine. Like they told the story to perfection.
Now, how about like if you're writing a story, okay, and it's going well for a couple of shows, and you know where it's supposed to go, and the person that you really want to go over, and you're really trying to put over ultimately, something happens in like the third or fourth match, and the other person that you're not trying to go get over, and like you're just like they're there to help your storyline, get a massive pop from the audience, and you something clicks in your head like, I think we're pushing the wrong person. How do you approach that reality and that change?
You have to really see, how I mean, it's all up to the crowd, and that's really where it comes down to. Like, you just have to then sit back and watch after the event and watch it on playback, and be like, hell, like, okay, this is not expected. I didn't really see this happening. We had a whole just like, all right, let's go back to the drawing board and see what we could do. But we got to capitalize on this now because this is like, wow. Like, and again, that happened too to us recently where we had somebody in the match supposed to be a one-off just to give them a shot because they've been really helpful. They've been trying, and just halfway through the match, the crowd's getting behind the person, and we're like, "What the?" Like, okay, this is really weird. Like, all right, let's wait a show or two and give them another opportunity. And again, the crowd starts chanting, "Jerry,
Yeah.
Jerry," and I'm just like, and I'm like, "What what's going on?" The promoter like, they like Jerry. I'm like, "Yeah, they do." Like, all right, we got to figure out what to do now, but we got to take advantage of it and figure out. But that was not the plan. It was supposed to be a very slow, maybe 6 to 8 month build where he finally
Yeah.
grows out of being, in the shadows and just but like, all right, well, if this is what they want to see, let's do it. We have to figure out a way to make this work now.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I mean, you have to, right? You got to go where the story goes.
Yeah, you got to take, and that's what that's where it goes back to where there's so many egos, but even promoters where, no, this is what we want to tell, and to even the detriment of their company, where they have their selected people, and even if something is not going the way it should be, they're like, oh no, yeah, they're the best thing ever. Like, no, they're not. The crowd's not reacting. Where the
Yeah.
person in the fourth or fifth match is getting a much better reaction, but they're not your people. So, which again, I've learned that when do have my friend, but I'm happy that I could say I'm very objective because people are like, oh, people can't say. oh yeah, well, so and so's doing this. Like, no, it's like I have some of my best friends who keep like, oh, when can I get back on BCW? And I'm like, I'm sorry, there's just no room for you right now in our direction. I
Yeah.
love you, but I just, you don't fit into what we're doing. So nobody can ever say in our locker room at least that, I have, favoritism towards anybody.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
go out there, perform for us, do the best, and you'll stay on, and we're gonna continue to bring you back. And if you pull out of grace with us, then I could bring somebody else in. But you just do your job correctly. Do what we need you to do. Plain
Yeah.
and simple. Not that hard of a concept.
The best advice is don't allow your finishers to be a leg drop. All right. So, uh, let's get to the nitty gritty. We have about 15 minutes before we call it a day. So tell me about the ring rats.
Unfortunately, I haven't got one of those yet in 22 years. So
Who are the best ring rats though? Tell us some stories. What's going
I
on?
wish I could. I wish like that's the one aspect I really sadly.
So you're saying there are no ring rats in your federation?
No, no.
Okay, all
At
right.
least none that I know of. If they do, please keep it. I don't want to know because I don't.
You're like,
We
I'm
don't need to
married.
get canceled, so keep that to themselves. So everybody can enjoy their own extracurricular activities. Just do not bring it anywhere near us.
So what you're saying is you don't leave breadcrumbs around for the ring rats?
Not at all. No,
Not at all. Not at all.
no, no. We have the opposite. No, we have mouse traps to catch them.
Do you find yourself having to block those little pesky rats from getting in?
In the past, yes. Earlier on in the company, luckily, in the past 2 or 3 years, we've worked very hard to clean the locker room up and clean the atmosphere up between people used to. It's. I mean, it's still, and it's wrestling still to a lot of, and it does still to many, even in the industry, has that rock and roll industry, rock and
Yeah.
roll mentality where it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Thankfully, a lot of it isn't like that anymore, and it's
Yeah.
more gamers. And a lot of people leave right after the show and just go to dinner. I mean, I like to have a couple of drinks with some of the workers, and just hang out, unwind. No, I mean, my friends always joke. So I'm not an alcoholic. I am a professional drinker. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense.
yeah, so I do like to, but it's true. Like the last, event, got the chance to it's where you get to connect with people and talk to people, and like some like I get inside their heads. I'm like, listen, what would you think of us possibly doing this kind of story or teaming you up with so and so,
Yeah.
off the record, and so I could, if we do like it, I could bring it to the promoter, and had good. So like, oh yeah, we've been actually talking about it to ourselves. We just didn't. I'm like, okay. I said I think we're finishing up, one or two things with you, and I think we could hopefully work that in. But now we're on the same page. So,
Yeah.
and that happens after, sometimes just hanging out afterwards and talking a bit. And I'm like, oh, okay,
They're talking.
yeah, defenses are lowered, and all right, a couple of shots in. And
Yeah, the fence, the pants, whatever. It's but
no, I do not do that.
one more question about the ring rats. How involved are they with the screw job? It's a good play on words. Tell me it's
There's
not.
so many. Yeah, I'm holding my tongue to go in so many directions that I could go in, and a couple of years ago I would, but I'm.
Do they influence the screw job where you're like, we got to get this wrestler off the stories because they're bringing in too many of the rats.
No, it's the opposite. If they do that, then we have to get them out of the stories now. Then we have to.
Well, that's what I mean.
I need that black eye. So if that does get to light, like, all right, your push is getting cut. I hope the ring rat was good. So
yeah. This person's shooting too much. They're way off script.
Again, keep that to themselves. Enjoy their time on their own.
All right, fair enough. So, you've been into wrestling since you were a child. You said,
yeah.
And you were like, I'm gonna make this my life's mission to get involved. How because before the show we got about 10 minutes. Let's talk about your journey a little bit.
Sure.
How did you get involved as a writer in the industry? What led you there? And by the way, let's talk about each step a little bit. So like tell me your first step. Let's talk about that a little bit. I don't want you to go on a long-winded answer. Just let's start with I guess what led you to being a writer first?
It was actually kind of I always loved writing and like coming up with ideas, but I lucked into it accidentally about 10 years ago
Okay.
at an event. Yeah, mostly coming up, I was just a ring announcer and manager slash color commentator, just depending on what the companies needed. Um,
And did that like were you hesitant to it even though you're saying you've always liked writing? Were you hesitant at first cuz you're like I'm kind of in my notch. Like this is where I kind of want to be. I like what I'm doing. Were you hesitant to it or you were like, "Oh, this is a great opportunity to kind of jump into something new?"
Early on, I mean, I mainly focused on, the performance aspect, and if other talents would come in because they would see and they knew just, things, ideas, because even I would post on, social media, like what I would think of WWE storylines that we're not doing well. I'm like, if this was me, if I was writing, and hey, if you're watching, if you're reading, this is what I would do with your story. They were like, but why aren't you writing? I'm like, I wish they would send me a contract. So some people would ask me like, "Oh, what do you think about this for my character?" I'm like, "Oh, maybe try this, and that." So I, not to toot my own horn, but I would think after a while, just from enough people asking me, I'm like, okay, I could do this like maybe if I ever wanted to, but it was never really a goal of mine until I worked in this one company where it just happened again. Like me, there was a promoter and like four of us others who would help out pitching ideas here and there. And we all had our own roles. But the promoter at times he was so busy or he just like had too much going on or he just neglected sometimes just to talk to
Yeah.
certain talents. And from me and like two of the other gentlemen's time, and we would just like talk like, why are they doing this? Like they should really this would be the direction I would go in. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. So it just happened one day where we're backstage and I'm preparing. I was ring announcing and I'm preparing to do something. I'm also helping. That's I'm actually just doing production. I'm making sure everybody's ready for their next contest and just that, like not anywhere involved with the characteristics. But one of the female talents is like, "Hey, AJ, can you come over for a second?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What's going on?" And they're like, "Do you have what would you like in our match? Like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody told us what kind of finish or anything they want." So I'm like, kind of like, "Can you help us with it?" I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "If somebody else comes back here and tells you differently, then do this." But funny enough, we were discussing. Here's my idea for the finish, the general plot line of it, and what should happen. And they were like, "Oh man, that sounds really good." Like okay, yeah. And it was a triple threat match, and two of the girls were high flyers. One was a martial art MMA kind of style. So I'm like, why don't we have the two smaller, the high flyers, team up on you for a while, and then mid match, you just take them down, throw them off, throw them off. To finish, I want you to put them both in a submission.
Okay.
And so she's like, "No, I can't do that." And one of the other girls like, "Why not? Why not? You're a badass. Come on, do it." And she was like, "She's like, okay, I'll do it." And the match goes off, and that's how she ends it. And the crowd goes crazy for it. And she
Yeah, yeah.
looks at me. She's in character. She looks at me. She's like, I'm like, "Oh." And from then on out, all the women came up to me and was like, "We want you in charge of our
Yeah.
matches because you understand it." So
And then you were
it
like
just grew.
lingerie match.
No, and that's why they trusted me. So that's why they would come to me to direct,
That's
and go over their stuff. So, and again, I put thought into their characters, and I knew,
yeah.
I've studied, so I knew, okay, this is why we need to do this for you, and I think this is sort of like, okay, yeah, we love that, okay. So, and
When
then it
did you
just grew.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so no, and then it just grew from there, where word got around, like, oh, like what, AJ booked for this company, we should bring him in because he has a really great mind for the business. So, and that's where it grew to, 10, 11 years later, where now, I'm a head booker for this company, and a lot of the younger talents, they know what I've done, and they'll ask me to watch their matches, critique them, help them out with their promos. So, which I'm very honored by that, because I still look, I'm like, who the hell am I? But I'm happy that I amassed that amount of respect backstage that they come to me to help them out.
Which is great, especially because you've put so much time into your career and, to have that kind of response is always going to be motivating and inspiring to other people that started where you did, you
Yes.
know? But more importantly, with that writing career and stuff like that, are you beholden? Are you contracted to just do writing for the federation you're with now? Or are you allowed to kind of, because what is it, like 3 or 4 in New York right now? Like that are kind of like the big independents?
I mean, there's quite a few in New York, New Jersey area. There's a lot. I'm not contracted, so it's more of if I get the opportunity or if I want to go somewhere. But right now I'm comfortable where I'm working at. Just helping. I've been with them. It's going to be 7 years in a couple of days, as a talent, and then slowly moving up the rankings from being part of a 5-man committee to now just me and the promoter, and
Oh,
him
nice.
putting a lot of faith in me. Is just listen, you've shown me what you could do. Give me your mock-ups, and most times than not, we go with mostly with what sometimes, there's people he wants on. I have to figure out the best way to do it, and it's worked out a majority of the time. So, but I have a lot of that free reign to be like, this, we need to use this person. Just take a look at them. Like, you're going to like it. This is the story ideas I have. And okay, let's go with it.
All right. And how often do you have to pull out a D20 to see who wins and who loses? Because no one can make up their mind.
Luckily, it's not as often. It does still sound where we're both arguing on, no, this person, I like, I think this person, we've been doing this. This person needs to like, no, I don't want this person anymore. We need this, but why? So there are some times we get deadlocked and we have to just go to, look back at stuff and either hear fan reaction, look online or social, see who's sharing and what the reactions are there. And like, all right, let's give it one final, let's give it one final try with this. And if it doesn't, we go in a different direction.
Okay.
But it does happen. Thankfully, not as often as you would probably think. Thankfully, knock on wood.
Have you ever told someone they're losing that night and the rest of the talent was like, that's not happening?
And so we took off a year from the pandemic and we came back last year full time, and early on that happened quite a bit. And luckily again, like with Ramon, I'm like, okay, fine, that's gonna happen, and get out.
Yeah.
Afterwards, and like thankfully now it took a couple of shows, but now we got rid of a lot of toxic energy, and we have a really great locker room now where everybody wants to be there, everybody wants to help contribute. But I don't have time for the go other places. That this go try there. Like we're trying to build something. So again, it's a work. I mean, it's predetermined.
Yeah,
You didn't actually. Of course, you have skills, and there's reasons we gave you the chance. But again, we gave you the championship. You did earn it to an extent, but not the way you think you did.
Yeah, but I have bigger muscles than that person. I could beat them up.
Yeah, like come on.
Like,
if Rey Mysterio could beat Kevin Nash, or you on the independent scene in front of 100 people, you can't be arguing this point. Like, stop it.
Yeah, how Trish beat Kane. Like
really.
It doesn't really. Yeah, but like I agree with you. Like loyalty is important, but also like that loyalty is to the brand and to building everybody up, because a loss doesn't mean you lose. Because everybody wins in that situation.
A loss is a win sometimes. That's the biggest thing I tell people.
Yeah.
I think, but it has to make sense. But that's where you trust us, and that's where sometimes I'm up. One time it happened. I woke up like 4:00 in the morning one night, and just something came like, okay, this actually could work. How can I? And I was up for an hour, like, how can I make this work? I'm like, the vision is there.
Yeah.
And just like, all right, this is the story we got to tell. But I think this is the way we make it where, in the end, they lose, but now they're seen as a bigger deal in the crowded audience, even though it's a loss in the record books. But if you go back, like now their reaction is much bigger because of that loss. Where if they won, it might have fell flat in a month or two, because now where do you go with that person? They won for why? Because they were politicking and because they were bitching like, oh, I should go over.
Yeah.
Okay, we put you over, and now you're going over like a fart in church. So
like that's what Vince McMahon was trying to say to Bret Hart. But anyway, that's another story.
We could go on for hours about those.
Oh yeah. Well, because he had the screw job. He got allegedly. Now he just has heart attacks. How's his brother doing though? Owen. Anyway, I haven't seen him really doing much. He was on YouTube just the other day. It looked like grainy, this footage, but didn't they just do a commercial for a movie with him, The Blue Beetle?
I'm not touching that. Nope, you're not gonna trip me up, brother. I'm not having any clip.
I ain't taking what you're feeding. All right.
Nope.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. Wink, wink. Okay.
Keep tossing out those worms. I'm not gonna take it.
Remember, I'm not smart about this industry. I'm not an inside. I don't know anything.
That's why I'm keeping quiet.
Yeah,
just when I need to.
Be honest though. Did I hold my own in this interview?
You
Did I
actually
sound like?
did, surprisingly. Yeah, you did. I was surprised at a lot of terminology. Like, okay,
Listen,
very good job, very good job.
and if I like something, I do deep dives, and
Yeah,
I used to study wrestling. I actually wanted to be a wrestler when I was younger, like in my teens and stuff like that. But music was much easier.
yeah.
The only bumps I took was stepping off the stage. That's it. I got bumped. What do you mean? I'm off the show. I got bumped. You know. Yeah, but I do love it. But anyway. All right, so we did pretty good. That was a nice hour. So AJ, how do people find you? Like if they're like, hey, I want to see who AJ is and what his deal is. How do they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at AJPanPC. You can find me on, well, now it's X at AJPan_PCA. And you can find me at AJPanPC on TikTok.
Okay, and do you have a website?
I do not.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I I will have that information in the description below. If anyone's listening, AJ is spelt with the letters.
Yes.
And
Periods,
Pan,
yes. Otherwise, if you just leave the periods up, I'm Aj.
yeah, Aj.
Yeah.
I mean,
I only
it's
go by that overseas.
oh, and it's not AJ with the dots on social media. Like it's
Right. Yeah. Well, they don't allow it. So, yeah, I probably would have if I can, but yeah. No.
yeah. What's the deal with that?
Yes.
One time I got a call from a spammer, and they were like, "You got to go to this website and log in, so I could help you with your Amazon account." And I was just going along with it verbally.
Yeah.
But I was making like I was old. I was like, really? Okay. What's the website? And they're like, it's whatever it was. Like, let's say it's just like, gohere.com. And I
Right.
was like, it's not loading up. And they're like, well, tell me what you wrote. And I spelled out, go here. And then I was like, DOTCOM. And they're like, no, not the word dot. It's like a period. So I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, it's still not working. And they're like, why not? What did you write? And I go. I spelled out go here, and then I go P. And they're like, you don't spell period.
I've actually dealt in the past with customers like that. So it's not, I'm laughing. It's like, oh, I tried emailing you. How did you email us? www. That's a website. That like, oh, that's why we didn't get an email from you. Like, oh, Jesus
I was
Christ.
wondering why I went to Pornhub.
Like, how long has the internet been around? You're way past the AOL stage. Like, there's no excuse anymore. Like, oh man.
Be honest before we go. Okay.
Yes.
How many 50 to 60-year-old women come to you and go, I used to be a ring rat. I remember those days.
Again, I'm unlucky to get any conversation with any of the ring rats past.
Even the 60-year-old. In my
No,
day,
not
I'd
even the
rock
60.
your world, Ash.
No, not even the 60-year-olds.
I'd wrestle you. I'd wrestle you.
All right. Yeah. No, after the shows, I'm at the bar at the Elks Lodge or whatever, Knights of Columbus, and while the football's on, I'm asking about where's Taylor Swift. So
listen, I know where she is. She's worshiping the devil. I'm
trying to know where she is. I'm trying to be AJ. When next time you have me, AJ Pan parentheses Taylor's version.
I can introduce you to her.
Can you? Okay, we'll have to discuss that off camera.
Yeah. The only problem is they'd probably both security would throw us both out.
Yeah, that's an issue. I'm not looking for that. Yeah,
like knocking on the door. Trust me, I'll introduce you, AJ.
Okay.
Knocking on the door. Hey, my buddy AJ here. He'd love to really fiddle faddle Taylor Smith in there. He wrestles.
No, not AJ. What about Aj? She'll see you too.
Yeah. All right. I could use an Aj.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now we're in business.
All right, man. AJ, thank you so very much for coming on. I really appreciate you giving us your time. And
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I hope it was more exciting than you thought it would be.
No, I definitely know it's going to be interesting because I've never really talked about just the writing aspect and not in my character per se. So, this was definitely something at first for me. So,
all right, nice.
Yeah.
Would you like to do a goodbye as your character?
I could. We could, definitely go for it.
Yeah. Give me a goodbye, and then say something about the right mindset. Like say your goodbye about the right mindset and being on the show. Go ahead. I'll let you do it out.
Well, Thomas, even though I want to thank you for having me on, I know it was your pleasure to have America's favorite agent on today. So definitely tune in to The Right Mindset, as I always have the perfect mindset. So please keep tuning in, listen to the past episodes, and we'll see you next time, everybody.
I love it. I love it. I love it. All right, everybody. As always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye.